Hello, this is Bailey Leasure, and this is the Leasure Sports Podcast. Back this week after there was no podcast last week. I'm going to get into the news, what's been going on in the sports world the last 2 weeks, and I'm going to start with the recapping what the Diamondbacks did since my last podcast. So the Diamondbacks went on a road trip. Didn't really do that well against San Francisco. Lost 2 or 3. LA, they went to LA where they've struggled in the past couple seasons, probably since 2013. They lost the first 2 games. Zach Greinke pitched against Clayton Kershaw in the first game of that series. Gave up 5 runs. They lost that game. I think it was like 8-1 or around that score. Didn't do well. Lost in 4 runs in a 4-run game. The next night, the Diamondbacks did do well the next 2 games under good performances under Taijuan Walker and Robbie Ray. Were able to split that series, and to me that's a win in that series. They then went to San Diego for 3 games. Did well, scored a ton of runs. Shelby Miller had a pretty good performance in San Diego in the first game. Zach Greinke pitched a really good game the next game. Gave up a home run in the 8th inning. That game ended 1-0. That was really disappointing for the Diamondbacks to lose that game, and then they lost the next game. After scoring, I think, 11 runs in the first game, they only scored 1 run in the next 2 games and lost 2 or 3. So they ended a road trip not really in a good position. They lost. They were 4-6 on that road trip. It would have been better if they were at least 500. But then they came home, got 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. Very, very good performances for them. They scored a lot of runs in those 2 games. Lost 6-2 in the series finale against the Dodgers on Sunday. But overall, it was a pretty good start for the Diamondbacks, getting 2 or 3 on the homestand. They've been continuing the homestand. Won their first 2 games. Zach Greinke, great pitching performance. They just escaped with that victory, 7-6. And then last night, very good performance by Patrick Corbin, 9-3. Notes also Shelby Miller in that series finale against the Dodgers. He was pulled in the 5th inning, got hurt. He was put on the I think 10-day or 15-day disabled list. They did bring up Silvino Bracho. He was recently sent down after last night's game to make room for Zach Godley, who's going to start tonight for the Diamondbacks in the 3rd game of the series. The Diamondbacks will play the 4th game. I think Taijuan Walker will be pitching that game, and then we'll have a interesting 3-game series against, as of currently, as I'm recording this podcast, the surprisingly first place Colorado Rockies. They played last night. They lost, and the Diamondbacks were a game and a half back. Now they're a half game back of them in the standings over against the Rockies are over the Diamondbacks. They lost a wild game, 15-12 over the Washington Nationals. Excuse me. Overall, good homestand so far. Zach Greinke, great pitching performance. Patrick Corbin, they're hitting well. Chris Owens has been hitting well. Diamondbacks, I think, have hit 5. They've got a current streak. I might be jinxing it. They've had 5 consecutive games where in the first inning they hit a home run. That's pretty impressive. I may have just jinxed it. It's probably going to end tonight, but you never know. Overall, good start for the Diamondbacks on this homestand. I don't think Diamondbacks, it's big that they can at least win 3 of 4 against the Padres. They already got 2 wins, so they need 1 more. Be great if they can sweep them. But I don't think any expert, even me, even Diamondback fans, I don't think anybody would have thought that this series would be very, very critical early on this season. I know it's a 162-game season, and there's a lot of baseball way too soon. You can't tell in the first month at all what's going to happen. But the Diamondbacks, overall, that Rocky series is going to be very, very interesting. You got the 2 surprising teams in the not only the West, but overall in the National League, probably some of the most surprising teams in baseball. So, these are both dark horse teams, and they're delivering. And overall, it's pretty interesting. I saw an article yesterday I'll find that article and leave it in the description of Dave Stewart. And he said, it doesn't surprise me that they're successful because, I kind of, he was along the lines where a lot of those pieces I brought to the team are still there and they're succeeding. Obviously he's still going to be criticized. I still didn't really like him as much as a GM. He said that I wasn't the one who made the decision to trade Dansby Swanson, but, it's whatever. So, good overall, good homestand for the Diamondbacks. That's going to continue tonight. Then they will play the Rockies for 3 games. So, that's it for the Diamondbacks. Zach Oddly will pitch tonight, and for the injured Shelby Miller. Talk about what's been also going on in the rest of the baseball world. So the Rockies are a half game up. I'm going to bring this up right now. They are currently half game up over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks off to a very good start, as the Rockies are. Rockies with that hitting. I think the Diamondbacks and the Rockies, this is a bold statement, but I think those two teams have the best hitting in the National League West. I don't think any other that includes the Dodgers and the Giants. I think the biggest thing over them, Dodgers have better pitching than the Rockies, but I think because you got Nolan Arenado, you have DJ LeMahieu, you have Carlos Gonzalez, you got Trevor Story. Diamondbacks have some good hitters too. They have your Paul Goldschmidt, AJ Pollock, David Peralta, Jake Lamb. But just obviously I'm not against the Dodgers, or I'm not saying like Dodgers don't have good hitters. They just have better pitching overall. Well, they have the best ace in the National League West with Clayton Kershaw. So Diamondbacks, Rockies have 14-7 record. Diamondbacks have 14-8. The Dodgers 10-11. They've been kind of average. They haven't been great. They haven't been terrible. They're not as bad as the Giants, surprisingly. And that segues into my. They got killed by the Rockies in that series, and that was the same weekend that this segues great into my next news. Madison Bumgarner's out. He's going to be out potentially 6 to 8 weeks due to a dirt bike accident he had that bruised some ribs and sprained his pitching shoulder. So I just come on, man. Accidents happen, but still, come on. You're worth $100 million and you do that. You got to be. Even Madison Bumgarner said, I'll give him some credit. He's like, I messed up. So it is. It is what it is. Other teams. I'm going to talk about other standings. Last night, actually, before I go into the rest of the standings, was a pretty interesting play. Possibly one of the play of the years. Plays of the year. Chris Coughlin's slide on the Toronto Blue Jays. Not slide. It was a dive over Yadier Molina to score a run. Really a good game between Toronto and St. Louis, and he dove over the plate, dove over Yadier Molina to score. It looked exactly like the Major League 2 play where Willie Mays Hayes dives over Parkman. So it was really fun. It was really cool to see. It's like real life Willie Mays Hayes. So that was pretty interesting. Other stuff that has been going on. There's a couple near brawls. Miguel Sano and Matt Barnes were both suspended for incidents. I'm gonna pull that up. Sano, he threw a punch at a player, so he was suspended a couple games. Matt Barnes was suspended for a game for intentionally throwing at Manny Machado in retaliation for the Dustin Pedroia thing that went up. Other news is going on. Dodgers called up top prospect Cody Bellinger yesterday. He got a hit in that 2-1 win for the Dodgers. So that was pretty cool. So not really a big Dodger fan because I am from Arizona. But it is what it is. Eric Thames from the Milwaukee Brewers having a great comeback. He's got a league-leading 11 home runs. Yeah, I think they said he's on pace to hit 81 home runs if he keeps it up. very impressive for what he's been able to do. Last piece of baseball news, not really. Actually, before I go, let me go into the rest of the standings. Baltimore is on top of the American League East with 13-6. Detroit is 11-8. In the Central, Houston up 14-6. Yeah, my predictions. I think I said Houston could be a dark horse, and right now I think they're the favorites in the American League. Nationally, the Nationals are 14-6. Chicago 12-8, not surprising, and then Colorado is up on top by half a game over the Diamondbacks. So that's pretty interesting. Final piece of Major League Baseball news. Big news coming out of Miami yesterday. The Derek Jeter and Jeb Bush Investment Group won the auction to purchase the Miami Marlins for $1.3 billion. I think this is a good move for the Marlins. I mean, Derek Jeter, I think he said, because I remember the statements he made about a year ago when Tampa Bay Rays and Major League Baseball went to Cuba to play an exhibition game, and he made a statement and said, I really want to be part of an investment team. I really want to, because Derek Jeter, he's never going to go away from the game of baseball, even though he's not playing anymore. But he wants to be an investor. He wants to own a team, and this is a good move. I think this is a really good move for the Miami Marlins. To be Derek Jeter, I mean, he's one of the most popular players in all of baseball history. So having him around, that's going to really be good for the city of Miami, for that Marlins park, and hopefully they can generate more attendance. Miami, I think, is an up and coming team. Had a huge setback last year from the unfortunate passing of Jose Fernandez, so they have some pitching questions. But Miami's are an up and coming team, and I think they'll potentially contend for a wild card spot next year. They're actually they're not bad. They're 10-8 right now. They're in second place in the National League East. So that's it for Major League Baseball news. I'm going to move on to NFL news. Big news coming out in the last couple days, especially concerning running backs. Adrian Peterson signed a 2-year, $7 million deal to the New Orleans Saints. Good, I think this is a good deal for both the New Orleans Saints and for Adrian Peterson. Number one, Adrian Peterson gets to go play with Drew Brees, one of the great quarterbacks. I know New Orleans, there's a lot of questions with the defense and the rest of that team, but I think New Orleans, they have a really good shot of getting back in the playoffs, contend for a wild card spot. When I do my NFL predictions, and more towards training camp, more towards the preseason, I'll get into that. But I think it's a good depth signing because it's good for Adrian Peterson because Mark Ingram's the starting running back. It's a depth signing. I think he'll do better when not trying to be or not being the workload running back, the star running back. I don't think he can do that anymore. 32 years old, and if he does, if he exceeds expectations, that's a bonus right there. So good overall, good signing for both teams. Moving on, other running backs. It was breaking news as I woke up. Marshawn Lynch is coming out of retirement. He will be going to the Oakland Raiders. 2-year deal, traded from the Seattle Seahawks, pending a physical. I think this is a really good fit for Marshawn Lynch and the Raiders. So that's a pretty good signing. And final piece of news concerning NFL news, but this is concerning the Cardinals. Darryl Washington, who's been suspended since 2014, has been conditionally reinstated by the NFL, but the Cardinals, they're contemplating what they're going to do with him. My thoughts on it, I think, if I'm the Cardinals are lacking linebackers. It depends what they do in the draft, which is coming up next week. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to recap the NFL draft and what the Cardinals did and some of the big draft picks by other teams. But I think, he didn't go to jail. I know he had the substance violated the substance policy by the NFL, the wellness policy. He also had that domestic violence incident. So I think Darryl Washington. If I'm the Card, you know what? I think the Cardinals should at least look at him. It just all depends. Is he still in shape? Because I think that was worse than going to jail or anything like that. He spent 3 years away from the game. So if I'm the Cardinals, I know a lot of people will probably disagree with this. Probably said, oh, he shouldn't get back on the team. He shouldn't be back in the NFL. But I think the Cardinals, give it just give it a look. Give him a look, and if he's not, give him a few days, see if he's still he's still conditioned to play, and if he's got something left, that's a bonus. Give him an opportunity. If not, then cut him. It's not. At least look to see if he's still got something left. He's been away from the game 3 years, but if he's still in shape, I think he could still do something and he could turn it around. So we'll see. I mean, the Cardinals also in the draft, in my opinion, I think they're either going to go in the first round quarterback or linebacker. So I think we'll see what happens. If they draft a linebacker, possibly they might cut him, but you never know. So that's it for NFL news. I don't really talk about NASCAR on this podcast, but the big news that came out yesterday: Dale Earnhardt Jr., one of the most popular NASCAR racers, is retiring after the 2017 NASCAR season. That's pretty big. Last couple of years in NASCAR, I've seen that a trend. Like I'm not gonna call Dale Earnhardt Jr. necessarily. He's over 40, but some of the most popular NASCAR drivers of the late 90s and early 2000s. Jeff Gordon retired, at least full time. Tony Stewart retired. Dale Earnhardt Jr. And it's gonna be weird because obviously I think he'll still be in the sport, but I still think it's so weird because Earnhardt Jr. obviously his dad was was a NASCAR racer, legendary NASCAR racer who unfortunately died at the Daytona 500, unfortunately. But it's a past. Rest in peace. But the Earnhardt name has been in NASCAR for so long that it's not gonna go away. At least for the time being. I think on the racetrack. So he's one of the most popular NASCAR racers. So that's a big hit for that sport. But it doesn't surprise me because I've heard he had a lot of concussions and he missed the final 18 races of the NASCAR season last year. So I think it's more physically, he's not the concussion issue. It's where we'll see what happens there. But hats off to him. He's a hell of a driver and he's hell of an athlete and ambassador for that sport. So it is what it is. But whatever happens this season for him, salute to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Okay, moving on to NBA playoffs that happened. I was going to do a prediction video last week on the first round, but things came up. So I'm going to talk about the NBA playoffs. A couple teams have advanced, including a team last night. I'm going to get into it. Boston and Chicago, that's been pretty interesting. Both teams have won all the road games so far. All the road teams won so many games. So that's pretty interesting. Boston got the home court advantage by winning 2 games in Chicago. That's going to be pretty interesting. Washington and Atlanta have been a pretty good series. That series is tied. Toronto and Milwaukee, pretty good series. That's 3-2. Cleveland swept the Pacers. Didn't surprise me. They had that 26-point comeback or 25-point comeback. If it was, I'm not sure. But again, in Game 3, won that game. And the Cleveland Cavaliers advanced. Golden State took care of Portland last night. They're now 4-0. I think Kevin Durant will be available most likely. I think he was available in Game 4. I haven't really watched that much of the NBA playoffs so far, so I didn't watch that game. So I think he'll be back for the second round. Clippers and Utah. Utah won last night. They're up 3-2. Clippers lost Blake Griffin, I think, in the second or third game for the rest of the playoffs with a toe injury. So that's a big loss for them. They're going to have to step it up in the next game, especially since Utah's Game 6. They could advance in Utah. Houston took care of Oklahoma City last night in 5 games. Even with that, I still think Russell Westbrook will be the MVP this year, but a good series for Houston. San Antonio, Memphis, pretty good series. San Antonio up 3-2 in that series. So I'm going to give a prediction of who I think will win those series. I think I think they'll win the series in 6 games. Washington and Atlanta. I like Atlanta in that series. I think Atlanta will win that series probably in 7 games. Toronto, Milwaukee. Toronto, I think, in 6 games. I think Utah will win in 6 games. And then I think San Antonio will win in 6 games. So we'll see what happens there. So moving on to my final bit of news this week. That's the NHL. First, I'm going to give my first round thoughts. Overall, pretty decent. None of these went to 7 games, but some pretty shockers. The number 1 seeded Montreal Canadiens were out. They were eliminated in 6 games from the New York Rangers. Ottawa won in their last in the 6th game in Boston against the Bruins. They won in overtime. They will play the Rangers in the 2nd round. Washington also got a overtime winner in the 6th game that got them into the 2nd round. Pittsburgh won in 5 games. The Capitals and the Penguins will play in the 2nd round. That's going to be a great series. Nashville shocked everybody. They swept the Blackhawks. It wasn't even close. That was a shocker. Blues took care of the Minnesota Wild in 5 games. Anaheim swept Calgary, and Edmonton eliminated the defending Western Conference champion San Jose Sharks in 6 games. Edmonton's been in near the bottom for the last several years, and finally, getting those number 1 draft picks finally paid off. So I'm giving my 2nd round predictions. The Rangers, Ottawa Senators. I think it's going to be a good series. I'm going to take the Rangers in 6 games. Washington, Pittsburgh. That's going to be a really good series. Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby. I'm going to take experience. I'm going to say Pittsburgh in 7. Nashville, St. Louis. Pretty good series. I like Nashville in this series. I'm going to take them in 6 games. Anaheim and Edmonton. I like the Oilers are an up and coming, but I think the Ducks, I think they'll get into the Western Conference. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take Anaheim in 5 games. And that's it for the podcast. Thanks everybody for watching. Follow me on Twitter at BaileyLeisure96. If you like the video, click like. If you like the content on my channel, subscribe. Comment if you agree or disagree with some of the news I talked about. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all later.